Before we dive in, here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts.
Oh, there you are. I was hoping I'd cross paths with you today. I'd like to invite you to visit the Storywell. It's a place where storytellers of all stripes gather. From improv performers to authors, screenwriters to playwrights, we all tell stories. But we're not here to talk about craft. We're here to make something out of nothing. Each episode of the podcast, your host, that's me, sits down with a creative person, and based on a series of random prompts, we get elements that we make into a story. Will it be a noir novel about King Kong? Or a Broadway musical about JFK? Even we don't know. That's the fun part. But what do you get out of this, besides a good time with fun people? Simple. The idea is then yours. That's right. Whatever we come up with, we give it away for anyone to use however they'd like, no strings attached. It's like each episode comes with a free prize inside. The Storywell with Kyle Olson. We'll save you a seat at the table.
Do you ever get to the end of a movie where the hero had to make a difficult choice, and all you want to do is talk to people about whether they made the right one?
Watch an episode of Star Trek and spend the next few days thinking about the rights of synthetic beings like Data and the Doctor. I became a co-host of the Superhero Ethics podcast because I love those questions, and the people at Wendy's are tired of hearing me talk about them.
We're not a review podcast. We're more interested in questions the characters face and how different works approach similar questions. Sometimes we'll even go behind the camera, talking about how on-screen media gets made and how that affects what questions get asked, which ones don't, and who gets to ask them.
We hit a wide range of media: movies, TV shows, books, and video games.
You can find us under Superhero Ethics wherever you listen to podcasts or go to theethicalpanda.com. But you can also do far more. We love listener feedback and we'll happily talk about your questions or comments on air, and members get special bonus content.
# not sponsored by Wendy's.
Hooked on you, baby, you're golden. Time moves, I never noticed. Just can't get enough. Got me wonderstruck.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Make Me a Nerd. I'm Mandy Kaplan, a mainstream mom whose mission it is to explore the world of nerdery through video games and Marvel, which I'm venturing into now, and books, which I'm delving into, sci-fi, fantasy, all things dragons and fairies. Oh my, here I am, and I'm not alone. Today I have a very cool guest, whom I don't know IRL, as the kids say, but we found each other because we're both podcasters and we're both exploring the world of nerd culture on our podcasts. So, from the absolutely hilarious, charming, fun podcast, Debate This. This is Matt Cole.
Hello, Mandy. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for saying nice things about my podcast. Those are the nicest things anyone's ever said about us. I do think we're really funny and charming, but I don't know that other people think that, and so it's good.
Oh, I have notes, Matt.
Oh, really?
No, I have notes.
Oh,
yeah.
Give them to me.
We're not actually recording right now. I just wanted to get you on here so I could give you some of my notes.
I'm here for that. I'm so excited. But yeah, I am really excited to be here, and I'm excited to talk about Marvel stuff with you.
Before we do that, what is your podcast? Can you elevator pitch it for me?
Absolutely.
And for the people.
Yeah. So I am one of 4 co-hosts of a podcast called Debate This. We're a comedy podcast about comic books and video games where we seek to answer silly questions that absolutely no one is asking. Anything from who is the best cat in all of video games to which X-Men villain would make the best college roommate. And we're really there to make you laugh. It's not something that you have to have a ton of nerd knowledge or be really, really into a particular thing or know every reference. We burgeon a little bit more on improv comedy than we do on strictly nerd news. And we're just looking to give people something to drown out the void.
I think you and I are so aligned in that because when I pitched this idea for Make Me a Nerd, I wanted it to be for nerds who wanted to get down and dirty about what they love, and also those of us who are curious, but maybe don't have the background or experience. And your podcast bridges that beautifully. I hopped right in. I laughed a lot. I listened to a very special episode that happened to be about Hallmark movies.
Oh, that's a good one. I really like that
So you're
one.
not so nerdy that you're like, oh, we don't do anything mainstream. You guys really dip into both worlds. So I listened to your Spooktacular, which is the concept being, why don't you pitch it? Because it's your lovely show.
Sure, yeah. So every October, we do what we call the Spooktacular Express, which is really just a weekly episode release of some sort of spooky or spooky adjacent content. And the episode I think you're referring to, we wanted to make horror experiences, horror games out of Hallmark Christmas movies.
So I, of course, want to play. Now, I don't know Hallmark. As mainstream as I am, I've never seen a Hallmark movie. So maybe that's something for the holidays I should nerd out about with someone. But I just took a basic holiday movie and I turned it into a Halloween themed title.
I want
Are
to
you
hear
ready?
it. Yeah.
I'm so excited. This occurred to me as I was brushing out my hair this morning, if you need to know that. Okay. It's Nightmare on Elf Street.
That's pretty good.
Thank you. Bloody the Elf goes on a brutal killing spree in New York City of all of his biological dad's loved ones. Then he decorates his dad's Christmas tree with their body parts as ornaments.
That's pretty good, Mandy. I like that a lot. I really
Take
do.
that, Kyle and Andrew and Todd. Did I get
Wow,
all their
you
names?
did. Oh my gosh. It's so difficult to nail down the 4 whitest dude names that we have, but like you crushed it. I'm so impressed.
Woo! So I understand how to do that. I understand your really fun and entertaining podcast, Debate This, wherever you podcast. But I don't understand Agatha All Along.
Okay. That is something that I am so ready to talk about. So I'm here for it.
I feel like it's your office hours and I'm like, Professor Cole, I don't get what you said in class today. I really tried. Matt, I really tried. And I have a background with WandaVision,
Okay.
which I watched with my family. It was very pandemic-y. We were trapped. We were watching a lot of stuff.
Sure.
And I thought it looked so stylized and exciting with her traveling through different genres of TV and times. And I enjoyed WandaVision until it really just dropped all of that at the end and became
A Marvel show.
a Marvel show with, supernatural elements and witches and spells. And then I got lost.
Yeah.
But hey, that was only 6 episodes, I think, and 4 or 5 of them were terrific, and I really enjoyed it. But I never really followed the lore that my husband and son were very attuned to because they know Marvel, and they were like, no, that's actually a character from another thing. And I was like, okay, well, I don't get it. So that's what I approached Agatha All Along, having seen WandaVision, but not really understanding it.
Okay.
Agatha All Along does the same damn thing WandaVision does, but it does it much quicker. So the first episode, called Seekest Thou the Road, starts off like Mayor of Easttown. Very deliberately, Agatha is a detective in a small town and creepy shit's going on and she's angry and she's shaking down suspects. And I thought, oh, good, they're going to do a different parody of a different genre, the way they did with WandaVision. And I was so intrigued when the supernatural element came in, but then that all disappeared.
Okay, if you came into Agatha All Along expecting sort of that same stylized presentation as WandaVision, I think Agatha All Along will definitely leave you feeling wanting, or leave you wanting, excuse me. It has that first episode, which feels, I think, for someone who was really into WandaVision, has followed everything, so on and so forth, kind of makes it a transitional episode where you go from, okay, here was the style of WandaVision, and this is the last little bit of that you're going to get, and now we're going into the style of Agatha All Along, which I think is still kind of stylized in an episodic way, but doesn't follow that generational TV setup that they did in WandaVision.
Right. So the training wheels, they ripped them off at the very end of this first episode.
They sure did. Yeah. Training wheels are off.
Yeah.
We are into supernatural witch stuff as soon as episode 2 kicks off.
So we don't certainly have time to do like recap every plot. But this first one I took I thought detailed, brilliant notes. The world they set up with her being this small town detective, then everything switched when she's interrogating a suspect and she's like, look at this dead body, look at these pictures. And he's like, those are flowers. And then the two-way mirror was a total switch. The thing we know as the two-way mirror in interrogation rooms, it really grabbed me and held me. And I loved it. I was really thrown. And I was writing, ooh, this is so exciting. I love this. It's sucking me in. All my skepticism is gone. Yay. And then the next thing I wrote is, now I'm totally lost. Why is Agnes going through all her looks?
All right. I can answer that question for you.
Please.
Let me take you, Mandy, all the way back to the last episode of WandaVision.
Please.
How much do you remember the grand finale of that show? If it's not very much, that's okay.
I don't remember a lot.
Okay, no worries. So, grand finale of WandaVision. There's a big magical fight, and Wanda gets all of her powers back. She wins the big magic fight. The guys from S.W.O.R.D. get rounded up and court-martialed or whatever. They're not particularly relevant. And Wanda pulls the giant hex down so everybody can go back to their normal lives. And sort of right at the end of the show, Wanda goes up to Agatha Harkness and reads her a little victory monologue and says, I'm going to trap you here in this here hex spell, and you're going to live in Westview as a nosy neighbor and not be a witch anymore. Alakazam,
Okay.
and then Wanda leaves. So,
Okay.
Agatha All Along picks up actually a couple of years after WandaVision happened. Well, I suppose a couple of weeks after WandaVision happens. Had to kind of think through that. A couple of weeks after WandaVision happens, and you have Agatha who's been stuck in this spell and
has forgotten about hair and makeup and clothing and is now just this like sweaty, street rat detective.
Exactly. And is still like jumping from, because this is Wanda's spell, right? So she's still jumping from like TV show trope to TV show trope in Wanda's TV inspired hex. And what we see in that interview is her breaking out of that last magical hold that Wanda has over her.
So I must stop down and ask you how you know this. Do you think this is very clearly explained if you watch WandaVision and this carefully? And I'm I'm doing other things with my brain? Or is this something you get from watching it multiple times or reading? Do you go on Reddit threads where people are theorizing so you know all of this? How do you know this? Because I didn't get a lot of that.
Yeah. How do I know that? My answer is D, all of the above.
Okay.
What I think that the reality is like it mostly comes from watching these a couple of times. Because WandaVision came out 4 years ago. And Agatha, in a sense, is like a season 2 of WandaVision. And most shows don't put a 4-year gap between season 1 and season 2 and then want you to recall these really intricate details. I knew that Agatha was coming up. I was really excited for it. I watched all of WandaVision the week before Agatha came out. It was very fresh in my mind. Also, I'm hopelessly ingrained in the MCU ecosystem, kind of keeping up with all of this stuff. So for me, yeah, some of it comes from Reddit threads, some of it comes from YouTube theories, but I think the reality is that it really requires a couple of watches to pick up on all of those things.
Okay, so I'm going to admit something to you. It's just you and me here. No one else is listening. I YouTubed because I know how to do that. I'm making a typing gesture so Matt knows.
I can confirm.
Yes. I MCU primer from WandaVision to Agatha All Along, and I watched I think like a 12 to 15 minute here's everything that you need to know before you sit down to watch Agatha All Along. And my note was, I still don't get it. What the hey, here I go.
Yeah.
So, I guess if I had rewatched carefully the whole season of WandaVision, maybe I would feel more ready.
The thing that's really difficult about those, like, YouTube retrospectives or a primer from this to this is that anytime you try and boil down, WandaVision was 9 episodes. Anytime you try and boil down 9 episodes into 12 minutes, you're really going to like miss every individual tree for the larger forest. And the thing with these MCU shows is that often the gaps are filled in by the viewers who like know all this extra Marvel stuff and can say, oh, well, that's an Easter egg to this. And that means this. And that means this. And to be honest, all that kind of sucks. And it takes you out of it and it makes it hard to enjoy as like a casual watch. But if you go back and like just watch the series for what it is and don't try and keep up with this is this and this is actually that person, surface level, it's way more fun and it's way more enjoyable. And I think Agatha did a better job of making it accessible without feeling like you had to know every single thing that was going on. And WandaVision was weird because it was the pandemic and we were all just spending a lot of time watching stuff. And it made it easy to overanalyze. But I think a casual rewatch of WandaVision will leave you feeling much more in tune with how it happened and what happened than like a 10 to 12 minute recap video.
Sure.
Because a lot of those recap videos want to make sure you walk away with the meanings of the Easter eggs and not how cool it was that they switched from generation to generation of TV show.
Sure. I mean, and I get that. I just, I don't have the time to rewatch all of WandaVision, so I didn't do that. I thought I would cheat.
Yeah.
And look where that got me. Utterly lost. So, this episode, I think the main point, and I don't know how far we're going to get with spoilers on like the finale because people might still be watching Agatha All Along, so I don't think we should do official spoilers.
Definitely.
But Agatha is very thrown when Aubrey Plaza shows up in this first episode, and clearly they have a past and they are mortal enemies, but I also sensed maybe some sexual tension. And but I have a huge note here for the people of Marvel and really the people of the world. Don't have two characters sitting with a fresh hot pizza and neither one of them takes a bite of pizza.
I love that note. That's such a good note.
Who would do that?
Who would do that? Certainly not me. It couldn't be me.
Not me.
No.
No. It's such a pet peeve of mine. So please, Marvel, everyone, if you have characters, make a point of bringing a pizza in and sitting with the pizza. Someone's got to take a bite of pizza.
Somebody's got to eat the pizza. Mandy, I have a question for you about Aubrey Plaza showing up. I know from listening to your show that the other Marvel show you've watched is Legion, which is Aubrey Plaza's other Marvel appearance. Did you know up front that this was a different Aubrey Plaza character than what she played in Legion, or was there some hangover there for you?
Didn't even think about it.
Cool.
Now that you're pointing that out. And I think one of the reasons is I only got so far with Legion. I never became a Marvel entity to me.
Yeah.
It was because I think I watched the first two and it was so hyper focused on that world that they created. So I didn't connect it to Marvel at all.
Yeah.
I kept, when my guest, one of my best friends, Tommy Metz, was saying, well, it gets Marvel-y. And I was like, how? This is not Marvel. But, so no, I didn't really associate
cool
the two Aubrey Plazas.
I think that's good. I think it gets hard. Like I've watched all of the Marvel stuff. And when I say all, I mean like even the I watched Cloak and Dagger on ABC, and I've watched all 7 seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all this other stuff that doesn't matter. It gets kind of confusing when you're like, well, that actor was this person, and now they're this person,
Right.
and now they're this person. So I'm glad you didn't have that feeling.
Not at all. And as a recovering actor, get more actors. Don't double up. And if you're going to double up, why Aubrey Plaza? That's a personal thing, but yeah, I didn't associate this with Legion whatsoever. But I was frustrated with the Aubrey Plaza stuff. We'll get there, but there felt like a lot of those repeat moments. That is one of my frustrations with like the Lord of the Rings movies and some of the stuff I've been diving into. There are so many conflicts that it's like, give me my power. You know I can't. Why not? You'll find out. And then it happens again in the next episode, and then it happens again 10 minutes later, and it's the same moment.
Yeah.
Am I being too critical?
I don't think you're being too critical at all. I think that moment is often what I come to this sort of media for.
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoy it when it hits time after time and time again. But the reality is there's like 3 plot lines in the whole world, and everybody just does those same 3 plot lines over and over again. And
Right.
especially when it comes to comic book media or comic based media, so many things boil down to, with great power must also come great responsibility. Or, I have fallen in a vat of radioactive slime and I didn't want to, and now I have superpowers. What does that mean? You can really only do it so many ways,
Right.
and it does manufacture a lot of the same moment over and over again.
Yeah, and I often, when I read anything, I often say, it was good. It could have been a short story and they made it a whole novel. Or if it's nonfiction, it could have been a pamphlet. So I guess my brain just likes things really action-packed and succinct
Yes.
and not drawn out.
Succinct is a good word, and that was the word I was going to use. I think
Well, I used it first, Matt, so take that.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to copy you. I am really glad that the experiences you've had with Marvel television have been WandaVision and Agatha, because I think that they are 2 of the least drawn out series that Marvel television has done. And I think just about any other show would really drive you crazy, just really bum you out about how drawn out, did this really need to be 6.5 hours long? Couldn't we have done this in an email? Yeah.
Interesting, because so my listeners will know that I last week did Loki.
Right
That
on.
was just randomly that 2 of my guests aligned and they both wanted to do Marvel, and great, I'll jump in on my Marvel phase. And I really liked Loki, and it didn't feel drawn out.
So here you got the other good one. If you want to sit down, Mandy, and watch Captain America and the Winter Soldier, Captain Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, whatever that show is actually called, or if you want to sit down and talk about how bad Secret Invasion is, we can certainly do that. But you've hit the highlights, and I would recommend you stay up there.
Okay.
WandaVision, Loki, Miss Marvel's pretty good. Moon Knight gets a little contrived, but there's some of those shows that they're really begging to be an email and not a 6-hour television show.
Now, Moon Knight. Now I think you're just making stuff up. Okay. When they open, the closing credits happen and they're really cool, and they show a lot of things I recognize, like that Fairuza Balk movie.
That's a good
The
one.
Coven?
I think it is The Coven.
So they're showing other witch stuff, and then they also intertwine stuff that looks like the Salem witch trials and what looks like perhaps real history. And I was wondering how much of Agatha is based on real history and how much of it is based on the fictionalized history of witches. Do you know anything like that?
My understanding is that there is a lot of basis in the it's going to be confusing, the real world fiction of the history of witches and witchcraft in America. I guessed it on another podcast talking about Agatha with like practicing Wicca, and she was telling me all about how, this is like this and this is this other thing, and I was like, that's all awesome and really cool, and I know nothing about it. I am not a witchy person, but I know that there's some basis in that.
Why do I feel like you cheated on me? You've just been slutting all around the podcast world talking about Agatha.
I am nothing more than a podcast slut, Mandy. I am so sorry.
Wow. Who is this person and what is her address? I don't care for that. Okay, so they are probably sticking with something. I like the word sigil, I know is big, and in my other life I narrate audiobooks.
Cool.
And I have narrated books about Wicca and spells and things that people really believe in and took seriously, nonfiction books.
Yeah, sure.
So some of those things were familiar to me. So I know that they were honoring those things while also making up a bunch of stuff about green witches and black witches, and right?
Yeah. And a lot of that then kind of gets into what isn't based in historical Wicca is based in Marvel lore. And
Okay.
Marvel has comic lore, and they've got nearly 100 years of it. And then they also have MCU lore, which started in 2008 with Iron Man. And
Right.
For people who are like way too into Marvel like I am, you kind of follow in order of what's the most important, right? So like, if you have a lore question, you should check the MCU lore before you go deeper and check the actual Marvel lore, because those might be different things. So Agatha in particular definitely pulls from a couple of comic arcs, but has a lot of stuff that is new and unique to the MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, as opposed to Marvel Comics.
And you tend to side on the word of the MCU rather than checking back to the 30s and 40s. And
yeah, I think a lot of us learned during WandaVision, and when I say us, I mean, again, the people who are like way too into this, that you can get lost in the weeds and you can start seeing a lot of things that aren't there. And I was definitely guilty of that with WandaVision and some of the early Marvel shows of just, I had read a bunch of comics, I knew a bunch of lore, and I wanted this thing to be a reference to this other thing. And
right.
yeah, and finding out that it wasn't always that situation has definitely over the years made me value the cinematic universe lore over the Marvel Comics source material lore.
Got it. And what's your sign, and what is an ideal date for you? That's what I feel like, because I'm trying to get to know you as well as everything you know about the MCU.
Yeah. I am a Leo, and oh man, is it April 23rd?
Yes,
Yeah, that's it.
You need a light sweater.
Yeah, it's not too hot and it's not too cold.
You just became my new best friend.
Crushed it.
Sorry, Meg. You're out.
Too bad, Meg.
Yep. I'm so thrilled that you also know Miss Congeniality.
Of course.
Ugh, you're good people. Okay, so now we are off into the plot. We're episode 2. The actor Joe Locke breaks into her house and she kidnaps him. And Joe Locke from Heartstoppers, and he plays a character whose name we can't learn, because every time people ask him who he is, this cool effect comes over his mouth. That's the sigil, right?
Yep.
He's not allowed to speak his name, or they can't hear his name. But my question is, what is Agatha's problem with this kid? And this is obviously, I'm going in order. Did she know who he was all along?
Well, you said the name of the show. You said All Along.
Drink. I said it.
Again, without giving like any spoilers towards the end of this, I think that Agatha has a lot of reasons to be suspicious of anyone who is trying to get in her atmosphere, right? Like,
okay.
Everyone in Westview experienced her as a witch and knows that she was involved with the whole WandaVision thing. And any other witches in the world know Agatha Harkness as this ancient witch killer who, has the Book of the Damned, or had the Book of the Damned, and WandaVision. And so I think anyone who gets into her atmosphere is probably subjected to the same level of scrutiny that Teen was. Um,
Hmm.
I think that there are other things in the series that lend you a little bit more to that explanation as to like why
Yeah.
she was so nervous about him up front and what her expectations may have been. But
Well, and he did break in. It's not like he approached her at the mall and said, "Can I ask you a question?" Like
yeah,
he
he
broke into her home. So I get that. Um, but it also seems like, I don't know, anybody would want to help him. He's such a lost soul, and he lays it all out there, and she's just so mean to him and calls him her pet, and it's so mean.
Yeah, I love Catherine Hahn, and I think that she is phenomenal in this role, partially because of her ability to just be mean. And I think
Hmm.
that they do a really good job of writing Agatha in this way that she's an ice queen and she's pretty rude to everybody, and it's hard to catch in those first couple of episodes because of the people she interacts with, right? Like you see her with Aubrey Plaza, who she clearly has some sort of history with. You see her with people inside of this mental hex that she's kind of living in where nothing's really real. And then you immediately see her with Teen, and it makes you forget that she was pretty evil in all of WandaVision too, and is kind of just mean all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I as you were saying something about that she's, everyone experienced her as a witch and they know what she did, and now she's in this neighborhood. Because I like to analogize everything, and I like to relate it to something real world so I can grab onto it in a more applicable way, and I'm a true crime nut.
Okay.
So I'm imagining, if Scott Peterson, are you familiar with that name?
Nope.
Okay. He is in jail for murdering his wife, Lacey Peterson, and her unborn child. And this happened, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. He's been in jail, but people doubt whether or not he did it. But if he got off, if he was accused and everybody saw all the evidence against him, but then he got off and moved right back into the neighborhood, that's what I'm equating this to. Agatha is there, but all the neighbors they all are afraid or have their own opinions about her level of involvement and guilt, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a phenomenal metaphor, really. I think that's
Oh,
exactly the right
I
way to
win
relate
the
it. You
podcast.
win the podcast. You so do. I think that relating it
Take that,
to
Kyle, Todd, and Andrew.
yeah, got him again. Meg, Kyle, Todd, and Andrew all in heat
Hmm.
from this podcast. But I think that she has an interaction with a guy whose real name isn't actually Herb, her neighbor across the way,
Hmm.
that she's
Hmm.
standing there in the nude, and he says like, yeah, I mean, you've been here for like 3 years and you're a little weird sometimes, but we'll just kind of let you go about your business. I mean, all of these
Hmm.
people saw the big old CGI fight at the end of WandaVision where,
Okay, they did.
yeah, where Catherine Hahn was standing on a building with black lasers coming out of her hands. And
Yeah,
I can imagine, like, you definitely keep that neighbor at a 10-foot distance.
right. Okay, and you loan them a cup of sugar if they ask, because
Because who knows what happens
maybe
if
they
you don't?
killed their wife and their unborn baby. Um, I'll just keep talking about true crime. You keep talking about Agatha, and we'll see if they keep meeting.
Yeah, can do.
Um, okay, so the plot of this really kicks in. What they need to go on the road,
Yeah.
and they need a coven to do that. She can't do that alone, so she gathers Evita and Sashir Zamata, who I love
Phenomenal.
from a. Did you ever watch Home Economics? Sidebar.
I have not. No, it's on my list, but I haven't watched it.
So funny and heartfelt and charming, and she's fantastic. Um, and then they recruit Deborah Jo Rupp,
Yeah.
whom I love, and she is what I leaned in so much because she's playing our connecting character. She's like, what the hell is going on? I don't understand all this witchy stuff. She's afraid. And I really, I related to her, and I really, really enjoy her in general and in this. And I learned a valuable lesson that I'm going to offer to you and everybody.
Okay.
When you are watching something like a Marvel entity, do not go on IMDb out of curiosity just to check to see, oh, wait, was she in that? Or what's the name of that person? Because you will see some people are not going to be in all the episodes. And then it's spoiler alert time.
Yeah.
So, I made a mistake.
Yeah. Mandy,
Rookie move.
you've really stumbled on something that, like, for those of us who really follow Marvel, use as a tool. So when we get, trailers and premiere footage and sneak peeks and stuff like that, and we see new characters and we're kind of trying to piece together, oh, what is the plot line of this show going to look like? Very frequently, theory crafters will go to IMDb and be like, okay, well, this actor is booked for this many episodes.
Right.
Likely they're going to be this level of character. But it does put up huge spoilers for your general audience who just wants to use IMDb for God's intended purpose and doesn't realize that it's a spoiler country.
I didn't think about that. I am always popping on there to, why can't I think of what I last saw him in? So please heed my warning to all who can hear us. So they go on the road, which is a road or a path in the woods. And this is episode 3, through many miles of tricks and trials is what it's called. Have I skipped something major you wanted to discuss? And
No,
I saw you
I don't think
glance. So. Okay. The best of this series to me is the snarky, funny, sassy, light moments.
Yeah.
I love them. And there are a lot in this one because they enter into this beautiful McMansion and they are immediately transformed into the Real Housewives of Westview. And they're all, overly made up and drinking wine. And one of them, I think it's Deborah Jo Rupp, is afraid, doesn't want to damage her outfit because it's from Talbot's, or it's just really funny stuff. And there wasn't enough for me of those moments. I loved how light it got in times. They're in the house and they pour a bunch of wine, and the wine glasses automatically refill. Where do we get those glasses?
Right?
Is that a Crate and Barrel thing?
This is actually kind of a recurring bit in the MCU that started in the post-credit scene of Doctor Strange. The first time that Doctor Strange meets Thor, he uses magic to refill his pint of beer. And it's been a recurring, just magical joke in the MCU that if you have the use of magic, you get free alcoholism, and that's just a thing you can have.
Alcoholism?
I mean,
just alcohol.
I guess both, but like okay, let's call a spade here. If I had a glass that was never empty and was always full of whatever I wanted to drink,
right,
I might have a problem.
Sure. We discussed before we recorded, I'm going to call you out, your Diet Coke addiction. And
if I had an endless amount of Diet Coke, I would be an immobile sack of Diet Coke. I would be like an unboxed bag of Franzia that someone left on the couch, except it would be a human being that's full of Diet Coke. Because you said you like analogies so much.
I do. Go. I love them. If I were a superhero, I would be the Analogizer.
I really like that name. I don't know what your power set looks like, but I like the name a lot.
Well, I pretty much live my life that way. When everyone's like, oh, I feel confused. I'm like, okay, so you're confused like as if you were, and then I have an analogy for it. And then it helps everybody see things clearer.
Yeah.
That's my superpower.
I think that's a great superpower. I love that.
What would yours be?
My superpower would be the ability to turn Diet Coke into jokes. I input Diet Coke and output comedic bits. That is my ability. I am the bit man. Bitman,
Okay.
which is just a one letter off of Batman and legally
Yep.
distinct from him.
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna try and bastardize the theme song for you,
Oh, that would have
so
been
we wouldn't have
so
to pay.
impressive.
But I get, yeah, I don't have it in me. I don't have it. Uh, so they're in this beautiful house, McMansion, and it gets very dark. Like for me, enjoyably reminiscent of American Horror Story, where
Yeah.
the house turns against them, and they're getting their shit freaked out, and I really liked that. And the episode ends on that, if I remember correctly.
Hmm.
And then we go into the next episode, and it feels like all the same stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
The house turns them on them in a different way, and they face another trial. And I was like, no, we just did all of this.
That is a really good observation, especially as someone who, uh, isn't ingrained enough into like pop culture Marvel bullshit to know what the ending is looking like at the very beginning. Because this is a very formulaic show. And I think that it made each episode a little bit more satisfying as far as pacing goes, but it
Hmm.
did make it feel super repetitive. It's like you're at an escape room party, go into the room, read the clue, find the key, get out of the room, go to the next room. And the story of Agatha is certainly told in the character interactions between those events, but the story model itself is, I think, intentionally repetitive in a way that's paid off by the ending, but I see that as an incredibly valid criticism of the series itself.
And do you find it repetitive, or you're just along for the ride because you love each battle, or you love each, oh, they're running out of time and they have to come up with the potion to fix the thing, and that's okay by you?
Yeah, I think I my answer to your question is both, right? Like, I
Hmm.
do find it repetitive, but that's okay. I like it. Kind of like I said
Yeah.
earlier, I come to comic media for these moments, for
Hmm.
the superhero to get punched real hard, and then by the power of friendship he's able to punch back a little bit harder, or a group of superheroes is in a room and nobody has the key, but somebody's had the key inside of them the whole time, and then they get out of the room. Like,
Right.
I come to this media for those repetitive moments, and I look for the differences in those moments.
Well, I'm an avid sitcom watcher, and look, Ross and Rachel got close to getting together, and then it didn't work, and that happened over and over throughout the series. And I'm in it for the different jokes, the different moments, the different beats that they're going to create from the same tropes or from the same stuff. So I do see that.
Yeah. And, like How I Met Your Mother is a great example of that, or New Girl is a great example of that. Like New Girl, I've watched more recently. Jess gets a boyfriend. It's not Nick Miller. Jess breaks up with boyfriend. Nick Miller gets a girlfriend. It's not Jess. Rinse, repeat,
Hmm.
6 seasons. Um,
Right.
and this show is this trial by fire format, but like, okay, the first one we're doing Desperate Housewives, and that's fun. The second one we're doing whatever the second trial was. Is that the Ouija board one? I think that might be the third one.
Yeah.
That is the second one.
No, I think so.
I don't remember
Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
And
Yeah. Like
then
the 80s.
yeah,
Yeah.
one of them we're doing, like 70s psychedelic disco. And what I enjoy are the different motifs and the different looks and the differences.
And I
Yeah.
got to let go and enjoy it too. I mean, no one's asking for my criticism. These things are doing quite well. So maybe if I approach the next one thinking, well, yeah, Ross and Rachel, they kept getting close and, then blowing it up, rather than thinking we just encountered an army of orcs and now we're encountering another army of orcs. It's like, well, yeah, but how is it different? How is it nuanced?
That is so important to keep in mind, specifically with like comic book and nerd stuff, right? Is
Mhm.
comic book nerd media not always super deep, sometimes super repetitive, but that's the bit. Like that's what we're doing and that's okay and none of us are complaining about it. Like I personally not a big pro wrestling guy, but a lot of my friends are really into pro wrestling and they understand what it is and they like it for the show and they like it for the
Mhm.
performance and it, the hokiness or campiness of it doesn't diminish their enjoyment. And
Right.
that's how specifically Marvel stuff is for me is like, yeah, I mean, you know, there's Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America, and they just do those three movies with a different cast every 5 years. And I
Yep.
still like it.
Yeah.
It's different and I like it.
Yeah. If they said we're picking up an 11th season of Friends, I would watch it and I
Absolutely.
would laugh at all the same stuff.
Yeah. I think we latch on to feelings and experiences that we enjoy and then we look for places where we can replicate those feelings and experiences. And
Mhm.
I love Marvel cinema stuff for the escapism of it and for um the never ending endearing optimism of it and all of this stuff that I just really like the vibe of, and I don't get many other places, and I keep coming back to Marvel for it because they keep giving it to me.
What do we know about Agatha from the comics? I know I've heard Catherine Hahn say, "Oh, she got a binder to learn Agatha," but this is a very specific version of this character, not like she was on WandaVision, where she was, you know, bubbly and annoying and the wacky neighbor, or this is very cynical. She drags out a lot of words. She's
Yeah,
dark and mean and selfish. And what do we know about her?
a lot. So
Oh,
Agatha Harkness's first appearance was in 1961. So
oh,
we have 60 plus years of
wow.
comic appearances of this character. Thing with comic books, not just Marvel, but everyone, is that you'll see a character for 3 to 5 years, and then they'll just kind of like disappear for 10 years, and then they reappear for another 3 to 5 years. And sometimes the new version doesn't really mesh with what was established by the old version, and they just kind of hand wave it away. And that's
Hmm.
just sort of how lore in comic books works. But Agatha Harkness, the higher overview is that she is a very old, very powerful witch. She has acted as a nanny, a babysitter, a guide, a confidant for Wanda, the Scarlet Witch in the comics, as well
Hmm.
as for her children in the comics, Billy and
Hmm.
Tommy from WandaVision.
Hmm.
Um, and she is often shown more as a oh man, like an older Victorian grandmother who's smacking you on the wrist for not sitting up straight at the dinner table. That's kind of the Agatha
Okay.
Harkness vibe. Yeah.
And when WandaVision started and it was like a sitcom and Agatha came from next door. She was Agnes though, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Did you know that it was Agatha? Or like were you in the know and thinking, "Oh, this is going to blow up because that's Agatha Harkness?"
I definitely was following the news that it was probably Agatha Harkness. Um
Okay.
I I was really caught up in WandaVision's going to have Mephisto in it. I was just like really involved in thinking Mephisto was going to show up. And so I kind of put the blinders on and focused.
What's a Mephisto?
Mephisto is Marvel's version of the devil.
Oh,
And he's kind of relevant sometimes. And
okay.
apparently is going to be an Ironheart and played by Sasha Baron Cohen, but that's not
Fun.
confirmed yet.
Oh, I approve of that casting.
Yeah, it'd be a good one. Um, but I think I knew pretty much at the beginning that Agnes was certainly a riff on Agatha Harkness. What's
Okay.
always interesting to me about Marvel is whether they call somebody the same thing they call them in the comics, or if they come up with a new, more modern moniker for them.
Yep.
So I wasn't upfront sure they were going to say the name Agatha Harkness, but I knew who the character was going to be.
Gotcha. You're so smart. um, well, I don't want to go much further in terms of plot because I feel like if people are just starting to tune into Agatha All Along, I don't want to spoil anything. But I have one observation with a question.
Okay.
So sorry for my rage about the pizza, and they didn't eat the pizza. They did take sips of their beer. Aubrey Plaza and Catherine Hahn, episode 1. Then they flash back to that scene in episode 6. And I wrote, is it a continuity error or an Easter egg? Because now Catherine Hahn is carrying 2 mugs of tea to the table. And we never see Aubrey Plaza, which makes me think that, they filmed it at a different time or something. Unless I'm really missing, no, that was intentional that Aubrey Plaza disappeared. But did I catch a continuity error that she had tea instead of beers? Or was there reasoning behind that?
The second one. There was reasoning behind that. You caught an Easter
Damn
egg.
it.
Yeah.
Easter egg.
It's not a damn it. It's a cool thing. You caught a cool thing. It's good. That is when we flash back in episode 6, we are seeing that moment happen from outside of the hex that Agatha is under. So we are watching reality when in episode 1, what we saw was Agnes's or Agatha's perception.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm basically a genius.
I think so. I would not disagree with that at all.
Matt Cole, thank you. I mean, we are coming to the end of our time together, but I will say that the whole season ended and I definitely was left feeling like, what? So, we can't, I don't want to go into any spoilers, but maybe after we record, I can ask you.
Yeah. And honestly, I would love to ask, what did you think of it? Did you enjoy it? Did you like it?
I liked moments and scenes and concepts, but as an overall entity, I don't think it came together for me to make me recommend it. Whereas WandaVision, I would say, oh, I liked WandaVision, even though I didn't understand the end and a lot of the lore. But I enjoyed watching WandaVision more than this. And Loki, I'm enjoying more than this. And I can't quite put my finger on it. I like witchy stuff. If it had been 4 episodes, it might have kept me more engaged. And if it had infused some more of the sassiness.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's fine. Honestly, I think the MCU, Marvel having all of the movies and all of the shows makes it feel like everything has to be for you and you have to like everything and you have to see everything. And that isn't the reality. And it's a pretty gatekeepy way to present it to folks. In 100 or so years of Marvel comics, there have been 100 or so years of comics that aren't the type of comics I like and aren't things that I want to read. And the same could be said for my friends of things that they like versus the things that I like to read. And when it comes to the MCU and Marvel television, especially some of the earlier shows, there's really this air of, well, if you're not the whole way in, you're not in at all. And that's a bummer for me because I would much prefer it be, you can tune in for things you like, you can jump out for things you don't like. And if you watched all of Agatha and it just didn't really get a hook in you, that's okay. It doesn't need to diminish the experience of other things. And I'm stoked to hear that you're liking Loki. Loki's phenomenal. Loki season 2 is also really good. And I think that, yeah, there are other things I'm glad you didn't watch, but I think there is more in the MCU that you could explore and you could find that you would really enjoy.
Sure.
I would super recommend Miss Marvel to you. I think
Okay.
you would really like that one. It's kind of like WandaVision, where there's a lot to like, and then at one point it's like, oh, don't forget we're doing a Marvel thing, and that part's not great. But the things you'll really like.
Well, look, and I like the Real Housewives of OC, but I don't really care for the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. But in every episode, they're going to get drunk at a dinner and yell at each other.
That's
I know
true.
it's coming.
And we're a Salt Lake City family and not an
Oh.
OC family. So,
Oh,
Yeah.
bring it.
yeah.
Well, Matt, I am going to do my business, and then I would like for you to tell the world when I'm done where they can find you and your podcasts and all the things you are up to.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
Deal? Here we go. Make Me a Nerd is a production of True Story FM, engineering by the peerless Pete Wright. My theme song is Wonderstruck by Jane and the Boy. And if you want to reach out on socials, you can do that at Mandy_Kaplan_Clavens. Matt Cole is like, she doesn't know how to spell her own name. Those are both with K's. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please, please, please leave a review and hit the 5 stars, write questions, comments, participate, reach out that way, and that helps me grow the podcast. And if you really want to help me grow the podcast, which would be a dream, go to makemeanerd.com, hit the join button to get your episodes ad-free and early. Matt Cole, where can everybody find you?
Yeah, you can find me all over social media if you're just looking for me at MC_DJ_MC. And if you want more for my podcast, you can find us all over the internet at Debate This Cast or on our website at debatethiscast.com. Or you can go into your podcast app or player of choice and just type in Debate This, and we should pop up right there. We also have another show where we talk exclusively about Marvel stuff. It's called Avenge This. We really only post on it a couple times a year, but if you want just like straight up Marvel stuff, you can get it from us there. And yeah, I do freelance stuff too. You can find me at bonfirepr.com. That's Bon with an AH and fire with a Y. It's a terrible way to spell it. And yeah, I mean, you know, if you just want me, that's where I am.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. And it's clear you know your shit and you're passionate about it. But thank you for also allowing me my questions and opinions. And, you know, you are not gatekeepery, which is an expression I'm going to steal from you. So thank you. And for all of you who want to join me next week, it's time for One Piece. I'm going into anime. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Mandy, you're doing One Piece?
Every episode, Matt Cole. Every episode.
Do you know how many episodes that is? There are more episodes of One Piece than there are of all of the Real Housewives, and that's a lot.
I know. I did the first 2 episodes of the series, the original. I'm doing the fan letter special, and I'm doing the first episode of the live action that just came out.
All right, cool.
With the host of the One Piece podcast, Zach Logan. So everybody catch up on your One Piece and join me next week for that. Gum Rocket. I know stuff.
You said a One Piece thing. You sure did say a One Piece thing.
Woo! I had doubts.